everyone, it's Melissa from Glamorax. Today we're talking about hiking socks. Do you really need them? What should you be looking for in them? How do they even work? Jim Evans from Bridgedale is going to tell us everything. Glamorax. I'm Melissa and I'm talking to Jim Evans, who is a product manager at Bridgedale, and Bridgedale make hiking socks. Why do you even need hiking socks? Why can't you just wear regular socks when you go walking?
Ultimately, the padding, a lot of socks that you'll just can buy off the high street and that you'll wear to work, or even sort of gym socks, won't actually have a huge amount of padding. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the screen, but if I turn a sock inside out, so you can obviously do this in stores when you go buy them, but they have this thing called Terry Loop, which is exactly the same kind of loop that you have on a towel, and that's used to absorb moisture and also provide padding. So you get a lot of impact protection for your heel, toe, and you can also kind of protect various other places around the foot as well. So if you've got a higher boot, a mountaineering boot, or even some leather boots, you can have more padding around there just to protect your foot from your footwear.
So basically they will stop you getting blisters, and will they stop your feet from hurting in terms of like pressure?
Yeah, I guess it's a mixture of preventing blisters. We can come on to that into a bit more detail in a bit. And then the other one is kind of fatigue, just trying to help reduce your feet getting fatigue in maybe footwear that's heavier or a lot stiffer than you'd normally wear day to day.
So can you talk us through what we should be looking for depending on the type of walk that you go on?
I guess a lot of it depends on the footwear that you're going to wear. In the winter and colder months or longer months, someone's probably going to wear more a leather boot or certainly a fabric boot. So it's a boot that's coming over your ankle to protect your ankle from twisting and turning on uneven ground. And for that sort of sock, then you're looking for something that, I don't know if you can see it, but the terry padding on this sock comes up much higher up the back of the sock. That's opposed to, say, a trainer running sock you'd buy, which might have some padding, but it would be limited very much to the base of the heel. Also, you can get socks that have much more protection all over the toe. So if you're wearing a heavier leather boot and you want some warmth, if you're walking in the winter or autumn and spring and it's still quite cold, then obviously your socks will provide warmth as well. As well as providing padding, socks also provide a way to get rid of moisture from your foot. So blisters caused by two things. First one is friction. So any point where your foot is rubbing either against the sock or the sock and the boot, that will create friction and will create heat, and that's what starts to create a blister. So if ever you take your socks off and you see shoes off and you see you've got red points, red marks, that's the start of a blister is going to happen at some point. When your skin gets wet, it becomes extremely soft, and obviously that softness combined with that friction can cause a blister much more easily.
Yeah.
So all the Bridgedale socks that we make are a mixture of fibres, natural and synthetic fibres, and they're all designed to draw that moisture away from your foot and then hold it within the sock so that it can then be evaporated away.
And so what about in summertime? Because is there something that we could use then that is still, it's going to not overheat your feet when it's hot?
So we do a range right through from a kind of heavyweight winter walking sock right through to an ultralight sock. Now it's all dependent on your footwear of whether which socks you wore when you first fitted your boots. Because ultimately, really, if you've got one pair of boots, really you should try and wear the same pair of socks in that footwear all the time. But in terms of our lighter weight socks, and when it does get the sort of more temperature, eventually that's a mesh design throughout the sock. So it's still got a thickness to the sock, but then it's got a mesh running through it. So we've maintained the thickness, so it'll still pad out the sock and still provide you a good fit. But then there's more breathability throughout that because there's physically less yarn to it.
One of the questions, my husband's ex-military, and he always bangs on about the fact that you should wear a sock underneath your sock to stop rubbing. Now, I've always found that to cause more rubbing, so I ignore his advice. I do take his advice of midway through a walk, if it's a long walk, taking my boots off, airing my socks, drying off my feet, putting the socks back on, or even changing to a new pair of socks. He's almost obsessive with his sock rotation. So what is it about the whole, should you wear a sock underneath or not?
Well, there's differing opinions. The two socks only work if your inner sock is particularly slippery.
Right, okay.
So the idea is that the two socks rub against each other. If you put two walking socks together, they're not designed to float over each other. So, we do what we call liner socks. So I've got a pair here, and traditionally liner socks don't have any terry, so they don't have any extra padding through them. They're purely there to either increase warmth, so we do a thermal liner sock, or they're there to increase padding within a sock to help you fit a boot out a little bit better. Some people say that the two socks can really help with blisters, but really it's more a warmth and moisture management thing again. The other one, like you said, your husband, you can take your socks off. You can swap your liners out very easily and keep your main socks on the top. But really, it's working out if that system is going to work for you. So I wouldn't recommend using a liner sock and an outer sock if it's the first time you've ever been walking. A good pair of boots and a single good pair of socks put together shouldn't give you blisters.
Another question was about sizing. So I know most socks go from from this to this type of range. So what happens if you're on the cusp of one of the ranges? Should you go for a sock that's slightly bigger or slightly smaller?
When you're trying the sock on, what you don't want to do is have a sock that's too small. Bagginess you can kind of deal with a little bit, but again, it's not. If the bag is in the wrong place, you can cause those weak spots. But what you really don't want is a sock that's far too small, because what happens with that is it I don't know if you can see, but it tries to pull the heel. Yeah. Sometimes, particularly on a trainer sock, if you have a no-show sock with a pair of trainers, and they tend to always be really tight. If you get one that's particularly tight, it always tries to pull the heel cup back under. Now, you can imagine if you're walking and your heel's not sat in the right place, then that's a point.
Or it would drive you nuts, that would. So definitely, so it seems to be, so if you're on the cusp, rather go slightly bigger than too small.
For most people, there's enough elasticity in most pairs of socks. If you're on the top end of large and you don't want to go to an extra large, or if you're on the bottom end of a medium, you can kind of play around within that size range.
So if we're looking at sock sizing, obviously then care of socks is going to be an issue, because how should you look after them? I mean, can you tumble dry them? How should you wash them? Are they going to shrink? Is there a specific thing you should or shouldn't do with socks?
This is probably where I'll get into trouble. Officially, you should wash a Bridgedale sock on a wool cycle, because a little bit more caring. The base of pretty much all Bridgedale socks is wool. You should really wash them inside out. You shouldn't really tumble dry them. In the real world, all my socks go in the washing machine, the same as all of my other socks, and most of them go through the tumble dryer as well. On a low setting, I'd never put any of them on a high setting.
Okay.
The thing I would say though, on socks, is don't use a fabric conditioner on your socks. It'll make them feel really, really soft, but there's a reason for that, and it's exactly the same reason you shouldn't use fabric conditioner on your towels. Is that fabric conditioners are silicone based. Silicone doesn't like water. Silicone causes the water to bead up and fall off. So if you wash your towels or you wash your socks in a fabric conditioner, you're basically coating them in silicone, and all the properties that towel or sock naturally have, you're stopping them because you're adding another.
Wow. Well, that's something I did not know. So that is fascinating.
There's a lot of people out there say they do women's fit products, and quite often they're a smaller unisex size rather than being a bespoke women's fit. Now, one thing, Bridgedale were the first people to do a bespoke women's sock, but we reduced the toe box size. So how this toe box is knitted. So all of this, the main part of the sock is effectively not knitted in a big cylinder, and it's got the same number of stitches going around. The toe box, we can actually shape it. So we've physically reduced the amount of stitches and changed the shape of that toe box to better fit a narrower foot, which in general most women have. And we changed the size of that again to make it slightly smaller than we have on the men's size, again to reduce the bulk around that and reduce a place where you could get a blister. Now, one thing I should say, just because it's a women's fit, it might not fit all women. So some women may still suit a men's sock, and similarly, some men with narrower feet might fit a women's fit sock.
Yeah.
So don't limit yourself just because it says it's a women's fit sock. Try different ones on. It's exactly the same as trying boots on in the store.
A price point. What's the starting price people should be looking at to be spending on a decent hiking sock?
As a general guide, really you should be spending 10 to 15% of what you're happy to spend on footwear. So it then depends whether you want to, what's your aspiration for boots?
Yeah.
So really, do you really want to buy that £150 pair of boots, but your budget can't stretch that far? Or maybe buy cheaper boots, but spend that extra on socks. But really, if you're wanting to spend, all day, 5+ hours in the hills or do multi-day walks, really you want to be looking at that sort of £150 boot mark. So you should be looking at that £15 to £20 for a pair of socks, which sounds a lot, but it only takes one blister and you've ruined your entire holiday. So I think one of your questions you emailed over to me was about longevity, of how long will a sock last.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard one to state. So this is a tweet that came through last week that said, "Gutted to report the Bridgedale socks I bought in 2001 to go backpacking around the world have developed a hole in the heel. They've served me well for 16.5 years. They've been to the North and South America, Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, and Africa, and most of Europe. I'll miss them." We don't.
So that's a £15 or £20 well spent, isn't it? If there was, in 1 minute, things to think about when you're buying a sock, what would they be?
Try them on, make sure they fit. Padding, have they got the padding where you want the padding? Try them on with the footwear that you're going to wear them with. So the ideal is when you're buying a new pair of boots, try the socks on with them in the store.
So basically we're saying make sure that you go in and try them on in the store. Make sure you try to wear them with the footwear that you're going to be walking with. Make sure that they've got good padding. Probably go for a mid-weight sock for some.
Start off at a mid-weight and then see what works for you around that.
Make sure that there's no, or if possible, no seam on the toe. It's all about moisture control, so that you are not keeping moisture next to your foot, which will cause the blisters, and that includes, airing your feet every now and then when you're walking.
I think the most important is whichever socks you've got, as soon as you feel that sore point stop immediately. If you're walking with people, stop immediately and sort it out. Because the earlier you sort it out, the more the less it's going to affect you long term.
Perfect. So thank you very much. It's been awesome. So I hope you found that useful and now know a lot more about hiking socks. If you're a woman who loves to walk, join us in Glamorax because we'd love to have you there.